Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelaw, licensed real estate broker right here in Silicon Valley, member of the National Association of Realtors, and ready to help you make all the important decisions and achieve your goals relating to real estate. If I can be of any help to you in helping you get your home sold or helping you find a home, I've got some great tools for you at my website, www.soldbyrobert.com. Both the tools are right there, front page, above the fold, so they're not hard to find. But my home value estimation tool is I think the best out there because it doesn't just do that. It gives you a ton of other tools to make smart decisions about your house. Even if you have no intention of ever selling it, it gives you information that I think all homeowners should have good information on as they move forward with the ownership of their property. But feel free to head on over and check that out if you're interested. Of course, this is an opportunity for us to get together and talk about some of the latest news in real estate, try to get a feel for what's going on out there. And I want to start off with a reference to a show I did a while ago about AI. Now, some of you may remember I did a show where I let AI generate the content of the show. And then the following show, I discussed about the fact that I had done that and what did you see. And I got some interesting responses. Mr. Blasius, a listener to the show who's also a real estate agent up in Sacramento, who's been a great contributor in terms of us having some interesting conversations about real estate, indicated he didn't stay long enough to find out that it was a AI generated show, but that he could tell the difference immediately and actually turned the show off within the first few minutes of listening because it just wasn't what he was used to from me. And that's kind of the feedback I was looking for. I had a few other folks reach out who were kind of in the same boat, a couple who listened to the end and wanted to talk to me more about AI. I bring it up again because at that time in the following show, I was expressing my concerns about the influence AI could have in your ability as a potential buyer, seller, or investor to really make smart decisions about the professional you want to work with, the real estate agent, the realtor, the broker. When you're making those decisions, a lot of those pieces of information that you're going to use to assess the competence of that individual is going to be in those initial conversations that happen in email, texts, those types of things. And at that point, and this is only a couple of weeks ago, at that point I was talking about how AI is finding its way into everything and that, mark my words, real estate agents will be the absolute first ones to glom onto it. And one reason is because in terms of competency, sadly, and I've said this before, this shouldn't be a shocker to anyone who's been listening to my show since I started it in 2007, I am not a huge fan of an awful lot of folks who are in real estate. The competency level is very low. They can be very good at getting folks to sign the listing agreement or getting buyers to do their thing, but when it comes to actually doing the job of real estate, not real good in a lot of cases. Now, that works great for me. I love having those folks on the other side of the equation. But you as a buyer or seller don't want that kind of representation working with you. So my claim at that time was that this is going to make that even harder, that you're going to have to be even more dedicated to really vetting people who indicate that they have got the professional skills to help you achieve your goals in real estate. And what I have found since then is that not only was I right, but that just in the last few weeks, it has absolutely sunk home to the levels at which this is going to happen. So I now get emails on a daily basis. So my email is obviously floating around out there as are most real estate agents, but I am getting emails daily, several emails daily, pitching me the idea of AI completely managing my initial interactions with potential clients. And that's happening at every level. One of the more recent ones was even AI that is linked towards voice reproduction that sounds completely natural. Now, granted, for those of you who've ever gotten a call from an automated system, usually you can spot those really quickly, even when they've been given the ability to sound as conversational as possible. But mark my words, with AI, this is going to get more and more difficult to tell the difference. I don't think we're quite there yet. But my point is, these are all tools that are now being actively marketed to real estate agents in particular. I'm sure plenty of other professions have the same thing going on, but I am seeing, and from different vendors. It's not like I'm getting the same email from the same group every day. I'm getting different emails every day from different providers who want to pitch me that this new AI system handling all of my email exchanges, handling the creation of all my newsletters. And newsletters were already dicey, right? Because there are so many folks out there that will provide newsletter content to real estate agents that they just subscribe to. And even I'm guilty of that. I have one system that I use that just automatically generates a newsletter, and I go ahead and let that happen. But I also put at the bottom, not written by me. I want to be perfectly transparent about that. But then I do a newsletter myself through a different system that I do write. And obviously all the content on my website I write. I take a lot of pride in that. I take the time to understand the numbers that I'm talking about and the things that I talk about in my podcast or in the market analysis videos that I do, because that's part of my job. My job should be to have a high level of comfort with the most recent data for the communities that I serve, right? That's what you're paying me for. I am paying closer attention. But what we're finding now is that all of these tools that are being created that are run by AI are removing the necessity of real estate agents to focus on improved knowledge of their area of real estate and being able to simply focus on getting the hook into you. And then the quality of the service you're going to get after that is absolutely not representative of whatever professional sounding communications you've had with that agent up to that point. So I'm gonna repeat my suggestion from before. Don't take anything that you get via email or text or any of these other methods that you've been contacting this agent, and assume that that is their level of competence. Have a conversation with them. Make them do a pitch to you of why they should work with you. And this is particularly true of buyers. Now, it's a little easier for sellers because normally sellers will have agents come over to their home and do their listing presentation, which is an opportunity for them to evaluate this agent, but also understand that the single most practiced thing that agents do is their listing appointment, their listing pitch. So be aware that that's a highly scripted, very much practiced thing, and be ready to ask very pointed questions during that process that they likely may not be ready for. And I actually have a list of questions that you can ask, that you can reach out to me for. There's a variety of ways to get them. I believe you even get, when you go to the seller section, I believe you get prompted with the top 10 questions to ask your listing agent. So feel free to take advantage of that. And if you don't see it on my website, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'll be happy to send it to you. But you need to ask questions they won't be prepared for. And I strongly suggest you do that. So the burden is more on you than ever before. There are now so many different ways that AI is going to get leveraged by real estate agents. And again, I'll repeat, it's just going to get worse from here. It's going to get more and more difficult to assess the competency of your potential agent via the typical early communication methods than ever before. Okay. So that takes care of that. I just wanted to repeat that one just because it went, if we were judging this on a spectrum from 0 to 10, and if what I was experiencing before I did the last show on AI was at a 3 or a 4, we're up to an 8 now in terms of the amount of outreach I'm getting. It is the new hot industry for real estate to market to real estate agents to completely remove their, and again, it's not just replacing the warm fuzzy part. It's replacing the technical knowledge of the market part, where the AI generates the discussion about what's happening in the market or whatever else. So your agent could know absolutely nothing about real estate, and the AI is generating the discussions that potentially make them sound more competent than they actually are. All right. Now, another thing that I harp on semi-frequently is the debt profile of folks out there in the world. And it's a thing that I return to because we were talking a lot about debt profile when the big downturn happened last time. So in 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, we were bringing up debt profile and how that influenced the actions that people took, whether that was the phenomenon of someone getting a loan on a new house and abandoning the mortgage of the home they were in, right? So we had examples I was sharing on the show of people who bought the home across the street that had gone into foreclosure, got an amazing deal on it, and then defaulted on their loan on the house they were in, and literally just moved all their stuff from their original house to this new house. and everything just kind of worked out, right? They abandoned, and of course they ended up having a foreclosed home that was going to negatively affect their credit for a super long time. But if they planned on staying in that new house that maybe cost them 20-30% less, that seemed like a reasonable trade for them. So the debt profile for me is what is overall happening with you as it relates to money in your life, and what things will you sacrifice first. And one of the things that we're at right now that's interesting is car repossessions, and they're surging. Over the last couple of years, according to Tow Industry Week, supply shortages mounting from automakers and demand for autos at a premium. As the price of cars have surged, so too have higher auto loans and more repossessions. It's been noted, and I highlighted this one, it's been noted that subprime borrowers, sound familiar? I mean, we had that in the real estate world. As crazy as things were last time, they're even crazier in the car industry. Or those with the worst credit history are defaulting up 11%, but even those with excellent credit have doubled in the past 2 years. So we're seeing this big jump there. If you go up onto YouTube and listen to any of the folks out there that talk about car-related stuff, there are not enough tow trucks. There are not enough repossession people out there to satisfy the demand for repossessions. And this all contributes to a debt profile, right? What is going on in your life that relates to this? Now, of course, we were finding that the average car payment for folks was over $1,000 a month, which was just untenable. Folks were overpaying for cars. And now we're seeing car prices dropping, stockpiles of cars really increasing. Ford and their trucks have been seeing huge stockpiles. So I mention this because it's a stressor on personal finance. And it negatively affects not only folks' credit, but then has them looking towards, what do I need to do to make my financial situation work out? So what do they sacrifice? At what point does that potentially impact the real estate world? Now, it would clearly impact them in terms of, will I become a buyer? It would be interesting to get numbers on how many of these folks that are defaulting on car loans are homeowners, because I think there'd be an interesting combination between those two things that could potentially happen. But I wanted to just bring this out. I'm not sure where to go in terms of conclusions. Is this something we should be worried about or shouldn't be worried about? And I'd love to hear back from you. Is the overall debt profile, when it doesn't come from real estate related problems, is that overall debt profile something that we should be worried about? And I'm actually in the process of trying to figure out if that's true. Is it something I should be worried about? From that standpoint of getting pre-qualified buyers and all these other types of things, I think it absolutely negatively affects that particular number and creates more subprime borrowers in the real estate world. But I don't know if it has a deeper or wider impact than that. So if you've got any thoughts, I'd love to hear them. In other news, we've got lumber prices are down, which is interesting. 29% down year over year. Why do I mention that? Because the demand for lumber is a great indicator of what's going on with construction. If prices go down, that means the demand has declined, right? And we already had a big supply issue where we stopped getting lumber from China for a period of time. I'm not sure where we stand on lumber, framing lumber, whether or not we're getting a lot of it from China. I think that we're probably not. Let's see, the CME Group just continued the random length lumber futures contract on May 16th. They've now switched to a new physically delivered lumber futures contract that was started in August of 2022. This impacts long-term price comparison since the new contract was priced about 24% higher than the old random length contract for the period both contracts were available. This graph shows random length framing futures through last August and the new physically delivered lumber futures contract starting in August of 2022. There's a seasonal demand for lumber, but this is an indicator, since we're comparing it year over year, the seasonal part gets eliminated when you're doing that, right? If you're comparing this year to last year and it's down 29%, that is something that you don't need to worry about seasonal influences. This is why when I do market reports, I do year over year numbers so that you can get it without those seasonal influences. So that is an indicator that there's simply less demand on the terms in terms of folks out there building homes for lumber. It's a reduced demand, which indicates we're going to see fewer coming out of the pipeline to satisfy the demand for homes. July housing starts. What's interesting is we had a record increase, primarily of multifamily housing units, and unfortunately, that typically means apartment complexes. And in my local market, I'm not sure that that's where the demand should be, or that's where we should be supplying the demand. Single family units under construction peaked over a year ago since single family starts declined sharply. Blue is, let's take a look at this. So 1 units, we can see that it's a sharp decline, right? Look at this, from 2022 through 2023 to 2024, big declines. 2+ units, just steadily increasing. So 2+, a 2 unit would obviously be a duplex, and then there'd be the tri and the quad, and then everything above that. By and large, though, if we were to break that number down further, my guess is we would see more. The more common development is 8+, or 8 to 16, larger apartment buildings. At least here in the local market, that is clearly the case. So not really satisfying the single-family residential need in any kind of a substantial way. I would even prefer to see condos getting built than a lot of apartment complexes. But that's what we're tending to get, which is a little bit of a shame. New construction picks up 3.9% in July, so that's the number that they like to push. New residential construction picked up in July, reaching an annual rate of 1,452,000. Starts up 3.9% from June's number. But again, before we were talking about year over year. So these are headlines that, when you're not taking into account the seasonal influences, you can really mislead you. So this is what we're talking about. We can see that multifamily starts 469, single family starts 983, which is the darker red number on this particular chart. And if we look at July for 2023, we can see it's a relatively low number. And the middle line here is just sort of at the 1,000 thousands or a million mark. So not really where I think we need to be. If we were to look at a more healthy time, I would go back to late 90s, 2020, 2000, 2001, that type of stuff. And substantially higher numbers, much bigger numbers in terms of total number of homes built. And just look at how low these numbers been for so long. Ever since, we've been below the mark since at least July of 2022. So it's just been consistently low. So I would love to see these numbers improve. Next, in terms of overall number, Freddie Mac mortgage rates top 7%, reaching a 20-year high. This is continuing in our local market. If you've watched any of my more recent market analysis videos, this is really what's affecting our local market. Now, by and large, inventory here in Santa Clara County, we only have 1 month of inventory on hand, give any single community, which would typically indicate a strong seller's market. And we do see a strong seller's market in a lot of areas, at least for the peak of the season here in 2023, when homes were getting over asking price, and we're starting to see that will decline over the rest of this year, because that's what it does after the season's over. But these interest rates are going to dramatically impact the number of buyers who are willing to jump in at different price points. So you're going to continue to see this movement towards lower priced homes. The homes at the lower price point are going to be the ones that go first. So and obviously this is our fabulous chart. This is where it got started in March of last year and made its dramatic increase to the end of 2022. But right now, according to this, as of the 17th of August, which is the day I am recording this, 7.09% was the interest rate, and that's absolutely going to be a cooling factor on buyers. Next, 60% of metro areas posted home price gains in the second quarter of 2023. I don't need to give you the whole article here. I did read it, but really the highlights are single-family existing home prices climbed in approximately 60% of measured metro areas, 128 of 221 in the second quarter. The national median single-family existing home price declined 2.4% from 1 year ago to $402,600. The monthly mortgage payment on a typical existing single-family home with a 20% down payment was $2,051, up 11.6 from a year ago. 1 in 20 markets, 5%, posted double-digit annual price appreciation from 7% in the previous quarter. So there's one thing, obviously these are national numbers. If we were to look at our local numbers, we would see that average sales price is down in an awful lot of areas, not by as much as many of these, despite the fact we do see that on average, homes are going for over asking price. Listing prices, and this is all stuff that we'll be discussing this Saturday on August 19th. That is the day for August for the Coffee and Real Estate live chat. So make sure to join me there. You can find it over on Facebook or YouTube. and it starts at 10 a.m. Pacific time on Saturday, and that's where we cover all of the data for the county, comparing the county overall to San Jose, Morgan Hill, and Gilroy, so that we're sort of taking San Jose has the most activity of all the areas because it's just so gigantic in Santa Clara County. So it's just a good way to sort of dial down from super large high-end view all the way down into smaller communities. And it's a great opportunity for you to ask questions because it is a live chat so that we can have any kind of conversation that you might be interested in. So make sure to join me again, 10 a.m. this Saturday, assuming you're listening to this before the 19th. If you aren't, if you're listening to it after, you can go to Facebook to the video section of White Law Real Estate and see any past versions of that. Of course, you can also do that on YouTube. Those videos will be available for replay as soon as the show is over. Okay, so and these are all numbers that I think inform us in terms of what's happening nationwide. Our local numbers vary a little bit in terms of expectations, right? So what's the takeaway? We're seeing a slowing market. We're going to continue to see that slowing market happening as we move through the year. I know we talked about a variety of issues on this show, and I usually try to keep it focused on one single thing. But I think the most important thing right now is to be extra diligent in how you pick your agents. And I know that was sort of the lead into the show with AI playing into it. But there is no time in history when the probability of you being misled about the qualifications of your agent have been as high as they are now. From initial communications, whether we're talking about emails, texts, newsletters, whatever, absolutely do not commit yourself to an agent until you've had a chance to put them through a in-person conversation about what they can and cannot do for you, and make sure to ask those difficult questions. And again, if you'd like to get a set of questions that I'm happy to share with you, feel free to reach out to me directly. You can find me at soldbyrobert.com and just click the Contact Robert button there to reach out. All right, folks. The goal, as always, is to leave you with more information on the table than I take up in your time. I absolutely hope we've achieved that this time. Thanks again for listening. I'll talk to y'all next time.